hearty welcome to one and all. This is episode 179 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Tuesday with me here in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. So episode 179 will be our 12th entry in our continuing series called Guilty Pleasure Movies. Not surprisingly, this will be the third Sylvester Stallone film featured on the list of guilty pleasure movies. See, Sly is the all-time runaway winner of the so-called Golden Raspberry. He had so many films throughout his career, worst film, worst actor, it's not a real award, but that these particular people who ran this award decided these films were terrible. And the truth is, what I consider a guilty pleasure movie, the guys that do the Golden Raspberry would say, bro, it just sucks. Okay, if you want me to agree with you that this is not high art, I will. But it doesn't mean I love these movies any less. And today's film will be Sly's 1987 arm wrestling movie about an arm wrestling trucker named Lincoln Hawk. Another in a long line of fantastic names that Stallone came up for his main characters. Let's see. Rocky Balboa, John Spartan, Gabe Walker, Kit Latura from Daylight, another great name. Link Hawk, Marion Cobretti. Let's see. Be playing the specials. Ray Quick, my number one favorite non-Rocky Balboa Sylvester Stallone name. It's funny it took me so long. Ray Quick. I mean, it's terrible and amazing at the same time because he plays a bomb expert or bomb disposal expert, but he's a bomb expert. And he'll kill you quick. Ray Quick. But Lincoln Hawk, the protagonist of the Menahem Golan Yoram Globus 1987 box office catastrophe. I can't believe this movie bombed as badly as it did. $25 million budget, and it grossed like $16 million worldwide. Worldwide! That's almost impossible because as the late, great New York University professor Robert Sklar in 1995, when we watched Rambo First Blood Part 2 in American film 1975 to 1990, he talked about how Sly's movies up to that point, Assassins hadn't even come out yet. This is 29 years ago. We saw Rambo First Blood Part 2 in like April of 1995. He said Sly's movies always play better globally. Sometimes even more so than the United States, but they always play globally. Jeremy, why is that? I don't know. You tell me, Professor. And then Professor Sklar would go into a little bit of I guess was supposed to be an Italian accent. And he would say, in Italy, they line up around the block for Stallone. Stallone. He always called him Stallone. I guess somebody once in a class called him that. I don't know. But this movie did not make money anywhere. I mean, $25 million budget for 1987 for a movie with Stallone is not very much, and nobody went to see it. That's a surprise. Because this movie, to me, is, in its own absurd way, at least as entertaining as the last Stallone entry in this list, Tango and Cash. I want to be killed by an American! Jerk off! But Over the Top is a film I did not see in theaters. But it is yet another Gen X standard. There are plenty of people under 40, especially under 35, that might be somewhat of a fan of Stallone. Maybe they're familiar with him with the Creed series, the original Rocky, and maybe don't even know this movie exists. It is complete trash. Overwrought, corny, manipulative, overly sentimental. They take a great actress like Susan Blakely. You want to look up, okay, here's what I want you to do. look up the phrase thankless role. Thankless role. Susan Blakely in Over the Top is one of the greatest / worst examples of somebody that is very talented taking a role where there's nothing to do. Her character is dying, and that's her character. There's nothing else. She's in a hospital. She's terminal. She's going to pass. And she gets to speak on the phone a couple of times. And that's it. A thankless role. But the movie follows a trucker, Lincoln Hawk, who is a trucker. He's got some financial issues. He walked out on his family when he was a young man. And now his mom, who is dying, wants him to pick up their son from, it's some kind of a cadet school, a military cadet type of school. And of course, Robert Loggia, a fantastically talented actor. And this is his second appearance on the Guilty Pleasure movies list. The previous year, he did Armed and Dangerous, and he's completely wasted in that movie. I don't mean drunk. I mean, he does nothing. There is nothing to the character. They could have hired anybody, not a guy with the chops of Robert Loggia. And in this movie, it's the same thing. It is a one-note character for 99.9% of the film. He's Armed and Dangerous. He's a stereotypical Italian crime boss. And that's all he is for the entire movie. A stereotypical Italian crime boss. It's just absurd. The movie still fucking kills, but it's ridiculous. And in this movie, he's this just awful, mean-spirited, nasty grandpa who doesn't want Sly's Lincoln Hawk to come back into their lives. Michael Cutler is my boy. Bro, he's not your boy, okay? This isn't Chinatown, okay? She's my sister. She's my daughter. She's my sister. Hey, fuck you. You're not the father. You're the grandfather. First time I saw the movie and he starts grandstanding about keep him out of our lives, I've been his father. No. I was on Team Sly from the start. His character is presented as a humble, good guy, good truck driver, and incredible talent for arm wrestling because he's half the size of many of the people he competes against. And it's one thing that we see with arm wrestling. I follow a guy on Instagram, a fucking funny guy. He goes by the Arm Wrestling Whisperer. Now, you can tell that he's fit. He's a real athletic-looking dude. He's quiet. He has sunglasses and good hair. And yeah, he has a build, okay? He's not tiny. He's not 130 pounds. But this guy has practically torn the arm off of people 3 times his size because arm wrestling is not just about being huge. Now, if you look like Devin Larratt, if you're 270 at 8% body fat and you have forearms that hang down like this, well, then your size is going to matter. But in the world of this film, Stallone, almost everyone that he goes against is at least a little bit bigger than him, and in some cases, they outweigh him by at least 100 pounds. So he is on his way to like the World Arm Wrestling Championships, which in the world of the movie is held in Vegas, at I believe the Las Vegas Hilton, not 100%. It's not really that important. And the late, great Rick Zumwalt, an actor who appeared in a couple of other movies in the era, plays the reigning 4-time world champion or whatever it is, Bull Hurley, another fantastic name for a movie character, Bull Hurley. So Bull Hurley is somebody who respects Lincoln Hawk as an arm wrestler, but this guy can't beat me. I'll just fucking rip this guy's arm off. He's a little guy. Come on. Rick Zumwalt had a memorable cameo in a movie the following year, which is okay, but it should have been better, called The Presidio. A fantastic cast. Jack Warden in a supporting role. Sean Connery and Mark Harmon are the kind of co-leads. And Meg Ryan plays Connery's daughter, who starts a relationship with Mark Harmon. And there's a lot of friction and static between Mark Harmon's character and Connery's character. They had worked together. They're both in law enforcement. Connery from the military angle, and Harmon, I believe, was ex-military, but he's a cop. And there's a lot of static. And Rick Zumwalt has an incredible moment in this film with Sean Connery, when Connery's in a bar. And it's the sort of movie that Sly, a sort of scene in a movie that Sly has done repeatedly, even in films like The Specialist. It's the Jack Reacher scene where, 140-pound Tom Cruise takes on 5 armed guys, and in 30 seconds, they all have broken bones. It's one of those kind of scenes. It's just showing that Connery's character is badass. Don't even think about fucking with him. So Zumwalt plays a bartender, and he keeps calling Connery Major. He's not a major. So Connery says, "You keep calling me Pop. You're misidentifying my rank. You can look at..." So the words go back and forth, and this guy decides, even he's 3 times the size of Sean Connery, we're going to throw down. And Connery, as only Sean Connery could have done, he goes, "I'm going to use my right thumb." Zumwalt's like, "What are you talking about, Major?" He says, "Well, I'm a lefty, and my left thumb, you wouldn't have any sort of a chance." So what he means is he's going to fight this 350-pound ox or bull using only his right thumb. So Zumwalt's laughing, the other characters are cracking up. I remember watching the movie. It's really the highlight of the entire film. Zumwalt goes to make a move on Connery, and Connery hits him with his right thumb and disables him with one shot. He hits him with his thumb in the neck, and the fight's over. You want to talk about a howler and a scream? That was it. Rick Zumwalt in the Presidio, which he got because of his strong work in this preposterous, over-the-top. The movie takes the form, and there's so many different elements here that are familiar. And I hate to keep dragging Sly, but in Cobra, where he makes no attempt to do anything, it's called a cop thriller, but it's not really a cop thriller. I guess it is. But there's no attempt to do anything different. Whatever we see in Cobra, we've seen in other earlier, better movies. And Over the Top has the Rocky elements where, yeah, Lincoln Hawk, we all know, is a fantastic arm wrestler in the world of the film. He's known around a pre-internet era. People know who he is. "Are you Hawk?" I said, "Are you Hawk?" "I got 1,000 that says I could tear your arm off that table back there." "Who are you?" "I'm the Smasher." "That's a good name." So he's known, but he's an underdog. So there's the Rocky element. Some of the Rocky movies, from Rocky V, he's trying to connect with his son. Yeah, he's trying to connect with his son here 3 years earlier and Over the Top. His son doesn't like him because he walked out on the family. He had his reasons. There was a lot of static with the father-in-law. There's a lot of stuff. He probably still shouldn't have left, but he's trying to make amends, and he's still a young man. You know, this is not the Sylvester Stallone in his 70s. He's 40 when the movie was shot, and he could conceivably be playing a little bit younger. So there is a long life for hopefully both of them ahead for him to make amends for mistakes they can't do anything about now. So they take the truck to the World Arm Wrestling Championships. So it's also a road movie. You have an underdog Rocky story, the cliches of a Rocky movie, sports film kind of stuff, underdog, can he get it done, and a road movie. Like a buddy film, like a Midnight Run or that sort of film, where there's a lot of scenes of characters traveling. You know, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a road movie, but in this case, they're in the truck. And there's a lot of just hooey, a lot of nonsense that goes on because Loggia's character keeps screwing around, keeps fucking with Sly's character. He tries to buy him off. And look, you know that they're not making this movie for Sly to lose. I'm sorry, no spoilers, but they're not going to go the whole film where his literal future and his son's future is going to depend on whether he wins an arm wrestling match. It's mechanical, but you see where it's going. And the arm wrestling sequences they seem pretty realistic. I watched a lot of matches on YouTube, and what they do here is at least plausible. I don't believe the magic sort of stuff where Sly's character says when he turns his hat backwards, you got a whole generation, X, but a whole generation of people. This is so stupid, but we used to do that. This movie, even though it bombed so badly, I guess when it was on HBO, everybody in Massapequa watched the movie, and all of a sudden, we're wearing hats to school just so we could turn the hat around and arm wrestle. And we kept getting in trouble, and we didn't give a shit. There are arm wrestling guys like Mike Ferrara, Mike Giordano. It was so stupid, but we got into it. And in the world of the movie, it does build excitement, even if you realize this is so phony, this is so canned, this is such nonsense. This character that Sly plays is not really that interesting. I mean, he's almost the least interesting of all the characters. The son, at least, the young actor at the time, David Mendenhall, took a lot of criticism that his performance sucked, but he wasn't given anything to work with. The character is presented as an entitled, whiny brat. You could give Christian Bale from Empire of the Sun the same year this role, and as talented as Christian Bale is, and in Empire of the Sun, his character starts as an entitled, whiny brat and evolves. There's not much evolution in the character in this film because it's not a movie that's attempting three-dimensional characters. This is a movie that is a blunt instrument. It's hitting you over the head. It's telling you what to think and how to feel the whole film. Now you're supposed to think Sly is being too rough. Okay, now you're supposed to think Loggia is even being more of an asshole. Now you're supposed to think this guy might give him a break, or that guy, no, they're just going to send him in prison. Take this money and get the hell out of my life.
When this is over, I'm coming to get him.
Almost like when he goes,
I'm coming to get you, Murdoch.
Sly gives threats like no one else. Yeah, maybe Clint. I've seen Over the Top at least 15 times, start to finish. Another in a long list of 80s movies I've talked about, and then into the 90s where HBO, whether or not they were even good, HBO and Cinemax ran them in very heavy rotation. And Over the Top seemed to be on 2 or 3 times a week until at least 1990. It was always on HBO or Cinemax. I guess I'm lucky because we didn't get Showtime in the movie channel at that point, not until 1991, I think. We got that, so I was able to watch it whenever I wanted. The days before streaming, either you had a VHS tape, or you watched whatever the hell was on broadcast TV. You know, looking back on it, we didn't really have it. We were really roughing it, but we thought it was great that we were able to watch movies without commercials. And now even on streaming with the highest tiers, supposed to be no ads, you still get a couple of ads here or there. So, what are you going to do? When HBO said no ads, they literally meant no ads. You're not seeing any advertisements. You might see a bumper, a promo for another movie, but not specifically ads. They're not telling us to try different light bulbs or a different cooling system in your house. So Over the Top, as I say, despite its enormous amount of flaws and stupid things that it does, it follows the tenets of the sports film, of the Rocky movie, of the road movie, and of the mismatched partners. I mean, it could almost be a buddy film. And from a certain point of view, it is a buddy film. The two people don't like each other, but more that the kid doesn't like the father. He doesn't really know his son, but the son has hated him. And one thing that the movie did that is surprising in a good way, although we've seen this trope in other better films, is that Sly has written his son consistently since he left. He has not, in his mind, pretended the kid didn't exist and didn't give a shit. He's written him letters all the time for a dozen years, or however many years. And the kid didn't get them. And when he realizes, when they both realize what's happened, it is a moment of genuine shock and rapprochement. And it's really one of the best moments in the film. And it shows that the young actor, he had it in him to do more than they asked him to do, and to, give a more coherent performance. But he unfortunately does most of his acting in the first third of the film, where his character is just a bad character. It's just not, they didn't think it through the way that they otherwise could have. Or maybe they just said, well, no, it'll work this way. See, Golan and Globus were the guys behind this film. I don't know that Sly had that much creative control. And I feel like if Stallone had written the script and directed it himself, I don't think that he would have made this movie. I don't think he would have made it this way. Probably would have been more successful. And certainly if his director from Cobra and Rambo First Blood Part 2, George Cosmatos, he would have definitely directed and made a better movie. There's stuff that, if they had had more creative control, I just don't think would have ended up in the film. The movie climaxes with a unbelievably intense match between Link Hawk, and Bull Hurley. And the film gives Robert Loggia as Mr. Cutler. Mr. Cutler is talking to you, the grandfather. It gives him one moment where he seems to get it. My grandson, in a short time, has grown to love his father. And I can't deny that he isn't trying to better himself. Yeah, I think it's absurd. It's arm wrestling. But he hasn't given up on life. And I think that he's young enough where maybe he actually could be a good father, and maybe sometime down the road, when all of the horrible shit that I did can sort of be swept under the rug, maybe I can actually have a place in my grandson's life that's earned. Now, Loggia doesn't get to say any of that. He was a great actor, and he could act with his face and his eyes. And seeing the film again not that long ago, I got all of that from Loggia's final glance towards the end of the film, where he seems to understand maybe the Lincoln Hawk when he was 25 was a scumbag. He's not that guy anymore. This is okay. He loves the boy. He's not a bad person. He's not a criminal. He just ran out on his family. I need to maybe lay off, let them do their thing, and we'll just have to see what happens. And I got all of that in my 40s from Robert Loggia's, the look on his face. He has about 10 seconds towards the end of the movie. It's really the only acting he gets to do in the film. Everything else is reacting and him just acting like an ass. And they give him this one moment. And I'm glad the movie did that, because it's also part of the reason why it's a guilty pleasure, that you got a little bit, the teensiest character arc from an actor who is capable of so much more. I mean, you think of him in the movie Big the following year, how wonderful Robert Loggia is, taking advantage of his sort of crusty exterior where you're expecting him to be a heavy and he's not. He's playing a really good dude in the movie Big and knocks it out of the park. I mean, there were people talking about, hey, Best Supporting Actor nomination, if for nothing else, just for the scene with him and Tom Hanks at FAO Schwartz, playing chopsticks on a gigantic piano, a memorable, iconic movie moment. Robert Loggia playing something other than a stereotypical heel or villain type of character. So Over the Top is free on streaming. You can find it on a number of platforms, but Tubi is probably the best bet for sure, because although it is ad-supported, the ad breaks are not as frequent as, for example, Pluto, where they could take a 2-hour movie and it feels like it's going to take 3 hours because they got 3 minutes of ads every 6 or 7 minutes of movie. Over the Top is a movie I recommend, especially if you're a Stallone fan that doesn't know this movie, or if you're not that familiar with his non-Rocky Rambo output from when he was, in his 30s and 40s, when he was very young. And this movie to me is very entertaining. And I don't think the dated elements, because arm wrestling is still arm wrestling, the fact that nobody's live streaming it or live blogging it, the World Arm Wrestling Championships now, aside from, if there is such a thing, and probably called something else, aside from people recording it on their phones, because people are recording it with actual old school cameras in the world of this movie, it wouldn't look that much different. The pits are going to look the same. The way they set up for the matches is going to look the same. It's like the movie The Color of Money, the sequel to The Hustler with Tom Cruise and Paul Newman. That movie climaxes with the World 9-Ball Championships in Atlantic City, New Jersey. New Jersey, AC instead of Vegas. The reality is 9-Ball Championships in 2024 or 9-Ball Championships in 1986, it's not going to really be that much different. You still got to run the balls out in order. You sink the 9-ball on the break, you just won that match. But other than that, you got to sink them in order. Well, the World Arm Wrestling Championships, you still got to beat your opponent. They haven't changed the rules. It's not going to be that much different. So yes, although this film has some dated references and some dated elements, it still plays. And as corny and manipulative and absurd as it is still fun as fuck. It is a super entertaining film. Now, as far as entertainment bang for the buck, of the 3 Stallone films, funny, Sly has 25% of my guilty pleasure output here. He's probably going to appear again once or twice more. But this is Tango and Cash, to me, is the best film of the three so far from the Stallone perspective. Cobra is the one I studied in the most detail. As I said, I got an A in film theory on the strength of a term paper I wrote on the movie Cobra, so I'll always have a soft spot for Cobra. But Cobra, as much as I love it, the second half isn't as good as the first. It's just not. The movie kind of, not that it goes off the rails, but it becomes less interesting when Cobra takes Brigitte Nielsen away from the city. It's just, it was very tight, and then it kind of goes slack for a while. And there are a lot of emotional scenes in Over the Top that don't really hit the marks the way that they should. Just doesn't quite get there. Whereas Tango and Cash, I don't think there's a single scene that's not entertaining. The interplay between Kurt and Sly, fantastic. Terry Hatcher is great. Jeffrey Lewis, so many great actors, Brian James and Jack Palance, but so many people in primary roles in Tango and Cash, the film never lags. That's also unbelievably idiotic, absurd, and preposterous, but it's fun the whole way through. It does not lag. Tango and Cash has a couple of moments, maybe in the middle third. It's not really that great. It's not, and when I say not that great, we know the movie isn't great, but there are moments where it slows down and you can kind of go to the bathroom and not pause it, sort of thing. But once you get to the climactic World of Arm Wrestling Championships, movie just kicks ass. I remember the Newsday review. They gave the film 1.5 stars. They said the movie is okay on the action straightaways, but slow and lumbering on the emotional curves. Like, they felt that everything with the son, none of it worked. It was just like all bad. Well, I can't really disagree that much, but the interaction between Sly and his sons, again, David Mendenhall, it gets better as the movie goes along, as the kid is given a little bit more to do and not be such an elitist, pain in the ass. So I just can't get over the fact that the movie bombed as hard as it did, because there are other films, and Tango and Cash got shitty reviews and made over $100 million. And Cobra ended up turning a profit, which was, as I said, the year before, and Cobra was trashed. It got even worse reviews than Over the Top. Hey, sometimes you just misjudge the market, and my perception is that Golan and Globus and Sly, they thought that the world was ready for this kind of movie, that an arm wrestling movie was going to play, and they were wrong. Now, maybe if it had been a great movie, quote unquote, and not just a guilty pleasure movie, it would have done better, but we'll never know. But what we have is the 12th entry in my ongoing series of guilty pleasure movies, and this has been episode 179 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. Boy, I love Sly. But if you caught this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you caught this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with episode 180 real soon. Until then, peace.